What's up, Blind Golf Academy members and guests? So after yesterday's video, I received this comment from one of our subscribers saying you gotta check this out. So I clicked the link and it was a short and it showed about 7 or 8 what I believe is South Korean golfers. Now I don't know if they're professionals or really skilled amateurs, but the video is gonna play right now and we're gonna take a look at all of these swings, see their cause and effect. I think this is gonna be a good video for you to watch, is because we're diving into something here that every amateur male golfer needs to see, because most men can get away with sloppy fundamentals because of raw strength, and in that raw strength can hide bad habits, and sometimes that raw strength cannot fix those bad habits. Now these ladies don't have that luxury. Instead, they build their swings around the true fundamentals, which is balance, sequencing, their setup, how they use the ground forces effectively. So if you would like a swing that is a little bit more reliable, a little bit more consistent, and actually scales with what you do as you improve, you need to copy fundamentals and not compensations. And unfortunately, a lot of the PGA Tour pros do have severe compensations, but they're just able to time it a little bit more effectively than you or I. And if you do follow this channel, you know I'm a huge believer that setup will create the swing and vice versa. So you will also need to look at how that swing evolved around that setup. So just because you change the setup doesn't mean you're going to change the golf swing, but this will definitely educate you a little bit more on correct fundamentals. Thank you so much for these great people on the screen here. They are supporting our channel to bring you more education like this. If you are interested in joining the crew, come on down. The link is in the description below. Okay, we have the first one on the screen now. What I want you to notice is on all of these, we're going to play them before, over and over, and just look how balanced everything is. There's no herky-jerkiness, there's no up and down motion, there's no exaggerated loss of posture. We're keeping our posture on all of these, and that is the key thing, is how can we keep our posture? And we have to use correct fundamentals. And one of the most overlooked fundamentals is your ball position and where it needs to be relative to you. There's no universal ball position. I know they teach that out there, and yes, it can help some people, but it really depends on how your body moves and your biomechanics of your swing when you break it down. So unless you understand this, then it's just a crapshoot. Does it work for you or not? But let's just take a look. So we're going to use Gumby Green for our spine angle, and then we're also going to do our OG Barney Purple for the lower plane line and the upper plane line. We might have to switch it depending on the video. That's kind of hard to see, but it'll get the point across. But let's just use also Ivan Red in the back brace line. And thanks for those votes for the blue line. I think Cookie Monster's leading it, and Papa Smurf or Smurf. We might have to do a Cookie Smurf if it's really tied up. But let's just take a look at, first of all, where the weighting is on this swing. So we're going to get mellow yellow straight up to the sky, and already we can see that this is a toe-based setup, meaning that a lot of the weighting is stored on the front part of her feet, and you can tell, look at the amount of body is on this side of the line. So we take that club back, we can see a slight raise of the arms initially, but that's counteracted by the club staying below the plane. So we split the difference. That's close enough for the plane line. We do see the shoulder tilt turning pretty nicely. There is a slight loss of tilt at this point, so we can see this by that left shoulder coming up, which will also cause your hands to raise up quicker, as we saw in the first part of her swing, but she's staying against that back brace line. Now remember, when you have a toe-based swing, typically the hands want to work more up and down because they're taking advantage of all that room. So when you do have that, we do see that left shoulder loses some tilting to allow the hands to move higher up initially. So we see at the top of the swing, we do get those hands much higher than that secondary plane line, and as a result, the club is not going to be as deep as Ivan Red will show us. So we have a motion where the club position is falling towards her toe line, and that is basically where her majority of the setup was to start with. So you can see the club will find the center of you based on your setup. But what we'll tell for this swing is watch the arms. The arms don't necessarily fall back behind and reroute a la Jim Furyk. We see this exaggerated loop in action. So we see the arms will fall straighter down. They immediately get to within that plane line, but she's able to do this because look at that back brace line. She's not going into the golf ball. She's not pulling back to find her balance point. She's doing a very good job of staying on her toes, and you can see, look at the right heel kicking up, and you can see that compression on the left toe into the ground because she's staying on her toes. Now this is going to allow her to use a little bit of this jumping motion to take forces from the ground as she gets down into the golf ball. So we see that club will fall right on that lower plane line, and as we strike that golf ball, right there's impact. We see a significant amount of turn. So here we have somebody using some vertical motion with staying on her toes so she can jump, but also that rotational motion, so that allows you to get the rotational forces plus a little bit of this up and down motion. But you can't do any of that unless you stay on your back brace line. And for her, setting up on her toes allows her to take advantage of this room so she can turn, and we don't see a lot of tilt because at right past impact here, look at that tilting number. So let's get rid of that line and let's do a quick tilt check in Ivan Red. So there's the tilting here, 37 degrees. Let's go to the top of the swing and we can see it's not that much difference. So we have about 8 to 10 degrees of tilting. So here we have somebody that utilizes more turn at impact because that's where she gets her power from. You can't do that unless you stay connected and against that back brace line. We look at that, still in the spine angle. Now her shoulders remain perpendicular to that spine angle, so she's doing a much better job of rotating around that pillar that's going right through her back. And then she just comes on up in this beautiful posture. We see the hands have reached that secondary plane line now instead of being a little bit higher. And then we come on up and we see a beautiful finish where the club will go right through that spine angle and a perpendicular angle. So here's somebody that can use their angles correctly without a lot of aggressiveness that we see in, people like me that just get. So next up, we're going to see a pretty similar motion where, again, you can see the weighting is more on the toes. We see the hands go a little bit higher to allow the positions to occur and allow the room and the spacing, because we are trying to promote more turn. And when you promote more turn, your arms need to work more up and down to counteract that. So you don't want to get too trapped, because now all of a sudden, if you get them too low and you turn a lot, now your hands are relied upon at impact. So you can see how things can go from each other. But this is all correct fundamentals based on their ability, which is a lots of separation, a lot of rotation, and this is where you need to look at, can you get in these positions? If not, it's okay. You need to find a setup where it promotes your natural ability, not forcing yourself into some method out there that you don't know if it's going to work for you or not. Let's get some lines going on here. We're going to look again at the biggest thing is where the weighting is on these when they get ready to hit the golf ball. And again, what can we see here? Arches of the heels. Look at the centeredness. It is clearly over the toes. So what can we predict for this? Maybe higher arms, more up and down with the arms while the body starts to rotate more to create that ground force. Maybe a little bit of jumping with the lower body to utilize those toe heavy setup. But we forgot one line. Let's put one more line back there for a back brace line, just in case we lose some posture. But I don't think we will. So here we have somebody that is also, look at the hands. The hands are raising higher, but it's counteracted by keeping that balance point with the club going lower. And this is also rolling. So the rolling can help you turn. But again, what do we see with the shoulders? The shoulders are losing tilting to accommodate this, to get those hands to go higher because of the setup. So as we get to the top of the swing here, we'll probably see those hands get higher, and they do. Let's erase these lines so we can see the hands are getting higher. The shoulders have done a pretty good job of remaining somewhat close to the tilting. It's not as exaggerated, so we don't see the hands going that much more up, but they are definitely higher. And if you take a look at where the centeredness of that club is, it is going to form right over where her starting position was. It's on her toes. So if you get somebody that doesn't understand this and they say, man, your hands are flying up there, well, they need to fly up there because they're finding the centeredness of you, and they also are taking advantage of the room. So you don't want to start thinking about my left arm being lower to look prettier, because you're just going to destroy a really good motion. Same sort of motion here. The arms will just drop straight down. They fall right into that plane. So we see they cross right in between the planes there, and we see the similar approach. Back brace line being held as we strike the golf ball. Look at the amount of rotation. We don't see as much tilt again. So can you see what's evolving here? We don't see an exaggerated tilting because we're trying to swing shallow. This whole shallowing trend where you have to really get this exaggerated position. We're just seeing a solid fundamental swing based on that same sort of setup. So you see a similar swing from the same setup and probably similar body styles. What can you gather from this? Okay, so to help save time, I just redraw some lines. So that red line is basically where the spine angle is and where we're expecting the shoulders to be when it's perpendicular to the spine. What we're going to do is draw a green line to see where the centeredness is, which is good. It all depends on that shoulder tilt at the top where those hands will be. So let's take a look at this swing. So we see the hands are now on that plane line, so we're probably not seeing as much shoulder tilt loss. Now this camera angle could be a little bit too close, which brings that club very low to the ground. So let's just go to the top of the swing, and that's where her shoulders should be. And they do a really good job of getting to that pretty close to perpendicular. But where do you see the club now? The club is falling slightly behind her centeredness based on her setup. And this is good for a driver, because drivers, you don't want to swing too steep, because now you're not going to get the ball up. So you want to feel like the club is going to be lower and longer at the top of your swing, and it helps if you get your shoulder tilt corrected based on your setup. And then from here, we're probably going to see a big drop and then swinging more up. So let's see if that occurs. So we do see, look at that drop right away. It stays behind the arches of the heels as it drops down into plane. Right when it gets it, look at that. It's already on that lower plane line. We're doing a great job of staying in our back brace line. We're rotating, and we're also maintaining our posture, which is key, because look at all this room that she has to work through to now she's connected. Let's see that rotation. Look at that. That rotation will now pull those hands along for the ride, so there's no flipping and dipping over at impact. And right there, we have a big amount of rotation. Do we see some shoulder tilt increase? Let's delete that line, and yes, let me see where that shoulder tilt is. So the shoulder tilt is right there. So we don't really see tilting issues. We just see more of a universal turn and keeping the relationship with the tilt, not exaggerating this motion to get that club down, because she does a great job of doing that by dropping the hands first and then really rotating together, so she has no need to accentuate that tilt. And if we finish that swing, look at the club exits right in that upper plane line, and then we come on up and we see a nice tall finish. But look how long she stayed in her posture. I mean, her posture does not change at all. So here we have somebody again utilizing her setup correctly and letting the swing evolve more naturally based on her strengths as a player. Okay, let's look at this one here. So what can you notice already? So this is a driver swing. We're definitely leaning over at our toes to be toe heavy. Now this will again allow some spacing for her to reconnect and turn more. So the more you need to drop down and reconnect, you don't want to be a heel-based player if that's your motion, because you're going to get running out of room, and then your hands are going to have to, you know who. So again, we see that arches of the back foot, and we can see how much of this is over the toes, because that's basically where the centeredness of her is. So here we have a really good position. We get that club on that lower plane line pretty well. Shoulders have leveled out slightly. Now she may have developed a compensation to keep her hands lower, so she might have been leveling out and pulling back to avoid her hands getting too high. But let's take a look at where they finish at the top of the swing, and we can see they definitely get a little bit higher than what we expect. And we take a look at the shoulder tilting. The shoulder tilting has lost a little bit of that tilt, so there is just a lot of initial turn, which helps as well get that club to reach that depth line that is needed. But let's take a look at that first move. We are expecting the hands to drop down, and look at that right away. They actually drop back, so they move back on the first part of the downswing, which is really hard to do for most amateur men, because we just are not flexible. As we come on in, we've reconnected the right arm to our body. Now from this point, the arms can't really do much, because they're right against that body. So now we look at the turn from this point on. It's just going to be turn, 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 and we strike that golf ball. So now, if we clear up all these lines, look at, she's still in her posture, she's still against that back brace line. The amount of rotation as she strikes it, she is almost facing the target. Now, can we as men do this? It's pretty rare, but what I want you to get across from this is they are swinging within their setup based on what allows them to utilize their body correctly. So you will not see a setup where it requires more upper body strength. You're going to see setups like this more in the LPGA Tour, where they're utilizing the body correctly. Another one, which looks like it's toe based, looks pretty tall, but look at those hands. Where are those hands going? They're going up and then back down, up and then back down. While they go up and down, what's the body doing? Holding its posture, and now has the room to rotate, while the hands don't get in the way and get jammed. So you only see them really get jammed in the body with the driver, because they're trying to change their path to be more inside to out, so they have to drop and then connect and swing up. You don't need to do that with an iron, so stop shallowing your irons, because you need to hit down on the golf ball. And we won't go different colors, because I think you get the point now. So look at how much of that body is on the toes. So we are going to expect maybe the butt of the club to get to about this region. Let's leave that X up to see if we get there. Initially, we see that club moving back. We see the shoulder tilt being lost. We do see an increase of turn to keep those hands on that lower plane line. When we get to the top, look at that. They're going to go right at, oh, bam. They do get higher. Now let's take a look at where the height is in relation to where the setup was, and we draw a line straight down so we can see it's favoring the toe area, which is what her setup was. Now we're going to draw a yellow line right there. Let's take a look at this move. We see that arms are going to drop straight down, but because we are turning a lot, we are going to see them stay on that steeper plane line for a slight bit longer. But you can see they're falling in between her two lines. They drop on down. The club head will find this lower plane line, but let's see if it stays on that lower plane line. It does a pretty good job. Look, from that to that, it just goes from here to there. So it stays really well on the plane line, which means the wrists are working correctly to compensate the body. As we strike that golf ball, we can see right at impact, we do see not a lot of tilt like we would expect, because this is relying more on some turn, and we do see a slight bit of posture loss, but the actual spine angle is still staying down, and that posture loss could be moving left. As you move left away from that camera, it gives the illusion like you're going into it, but we know she probably isn't because she's maintaining her spine angle. If she was moving into the golf ball, there's no way to move into the golf ball and maintain that spine angle. You'll probably do some damage to your lower back. So as we come on through to the finish, we can definitely see a balanced approach, and look how long she stays in her spine angle well past impact. This requires a certain body style. So I've saved this one for last just because it hits home right where I'm trying to tell you guys to set up. And this is how you'll see most really good lady golfers set up, because they're utilizing turning, they're utilizing forces, whether it be ground forces, vertical or rotational, but you can only do it if you set up in this manner. And that is to avoid that forward press that I see everybody trying to steal at the start of the swing. So if we take a look here, we have our nice shoulder tilt, and we have our spine angle right in between that, and take a look at that club shaft. We don't have this exaggerated forward press. Let's do this in yellow. We can see that club shaft is, where's it pointing? It's pointing to the same area that our shoulders are ready to move. So we are connected to our hub. Now, why is this important? Because you want to be connected at your hub, because you've aligned both your circles to point in the same area, plus the difference between the angles of your circle are not as obscene as when you forward press. So in other words, we have this circle that's pointing slightly up, and then we have this circle that's pointing slightly up more. So they're both pointing slightly up. And what do you want to do with the driver? Hit it up. The moment you get any forward press going on, now your club shaft is pointing down. So if you start forward pressing this way, where's your club shaft? Pointing down. And you want it to point up. So what do you have to do? So let's take a look at this important thing. So we're going to put a brace line on the right side, and now we're going to take a look. We see the motion moving over that brace line, but it's not a sway or a hip slide. What we see is, look at the hips, they now turn towards the target, so she's still getting a spacing between her initial starting point and the gap at the top of her swing. What do you see with her spine angle when she's here? We're going to draw this in green because this is what I want you guys to emulate. It is also pointing where? Up. So we have a turn that promotes up. We have a starting position that the hands were connected to the tilt, which did what? Promote up. What are we trying to do in a golf swing with a driver? Promote up. So as we come on through, watch the lower body. So we're going to put a impact line right there. So we see the sequencing. Look at the knee. The knee's firing towards that impact line, but it doesn't sway over, right? We don't need to sway over. We need to stay back as we strike a driver. And as we keep on coming down, we're still rotating. So she rotates incredibly. Look at that. The left hip pulls back, back, back. It gets further away. But as she strikes it, where's her spine pointing? Up. Why is it doing that? Because the setup was promoted to just stay there while you turn and turn. You don't need sway. You don't need drive with the hips. You don't need all that stuff. You just find your post and turn and trust everything to go naturally. We see as we strike the golf ball, where did that club pass through? It's going up. It's not flipping. It's rolling. So we see that release, a nice full extension as we come on through. Look at that. Nice full extension. And look at what's happening here. Extension and extension. And where is it colliding into? Right there's the center of your motion. And we see that nice full arms crossing while they're in front of the chest. We see it staying in front of the chest till about here. This is where they start to cross back to the left side. So this is still pretty connected with a lot of turn. Now, I say this not so you need to go there and copy these swings verbatim. You don't want to sit there and watch frame by frame and try and copy them, but I'm trying to open your eyes to show you that LPGA players and top level ladies typically rely more on correct fundamentals for them and not have this crisscross exaggerated forward press swaying off the golf ball to make that club work for you. Remember, your club is a tool. It's designed to do certain things. Irons is designed to strike down. Driver is designed to strike up. That's why it's on a tee. So why in God's name do you want to forward press a driver when you have to find a way to get that club shaft to lean back as you strike it? And why in God's name do you want to promote even more of a forward press with an iron when you're so disconnected your body has to recontour to match up somehow at impact? That's compensations, but I understand if those compensations are created because your body cannot physically get into certain positions. So that's why education of your golf swing is so important, because none of these methods out there know your golf swing unless you pay them a paywall system. No paywall systems here. Send me your video. We go live every Sunday. Hope that helps you. Fairways and greens.